So now we'll just do quick introductions of ourselves. I'll let Chuck start since he's the first photo.
Yes, hi, I'm Chuck Cox, and I also am in the Writing Studies program, but I'm also the faculty director of the Complex Problems program at the University College Living-learning community.
I'm Richard Duncan. I'm the program manager for both those programs as well.
I'm Rebecca Comfort, and senior program coordinator for those programs.
And we have some more faculty.
Yeah, if you'll introduce yourselves with what department you're from.
Hi, I'm Celeste Davis. I'm a faculty member in Health Studies.
Hi, Steph Woods, American Studies and AUX1 faculty director.
I'm Martin Oliver. I'm the director of the Arab World Studies program.
So, obviously we're going to start out with what is UC. So the purposes of our conversation, we're specifically looking at the University College Living-learning community. There are other learning communities on campus, like honors, community-based research scholars, and the three-year scholars programs. But specifically for today's conversation, we're just looking at University College. So what is UC? So it's a living learning community. What that means is students are enrolled in an academic setting together. So they either take a class or a series of classes together, and they live in the same space. University College is our largest living learning community on campus. It was established in 2004. It has changed its form a bit, but it averages between 400 and 600 students. All first-year students that are not entering into another living learning community are invited to be a part of UC. The way that we build UC is students will enroll in one of a series of pre-selected complex problems classes. This coming semester, we have selected 32 sections with a capacity of 608 students. And then we build cohorts, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, for each floor with a shared theme between the cohort or the seminar titles and topics. But basically the purpose of this is to build social and intellectual community for the students. So it's an opportunity for first year students to get engaged on campus a little earlier, both academically and with a specific group of students. So thinking about the way that they live together, I assume everyone's familiar with Anderson Hall and Letts Hall, that's where they live. We house each cohort on either a wing or a floor. So Letts has smaller floors, so the entire cohort is one floor. Anderson is split by wings. The students will either live with their roommate is either in their class or in their cohort. So if it's a cohort of, say, 4 different seminars, they will live with another student who is in one of those 4 classes. So they have the opportunity to engage in the classroom and then outside the classroom about the various topics, themes, current events, that sort of thing. And then we have 3 levels of programming that happen within University College. The individual seminars have required programming that will be discussed a little bit later. The themed cohorts will have collaborative programming amongst the faculty, which will also be discussed in a bit. And then we have large-scale full community programming that happens. So that's an initial welcome that we do at the beginning of the semester. This semester, the welcome was given by Provost Myers. They have some social opportunity to meet their faculty and their program leader. So we hire a student staff member for every single section that helps facilitate community development both in the classroom, but then also in the residence hall. So, like I mentioned, it's been around since 2004. But the identity and kind of soul of what University College is has changed significantly. And so there were some catalysts for that change. One of those was the university. And then also the voices from students and faculty. So within that, the University College program shifted when the university implemented the new AU core curriculum, which is an inquiry-based curriculum model. Within that, we had to then adjust and figure out how we can tie living learning communities to the complex problems seminar. So that's what shifted from the previous iteration where students had labs and live-in staff members and that kind of thing. Students are reporting from the fall transition survey, but also anecdotally, that they really want to focus more on intellectual community development. So they want spaces where they can talk to peers and faculty and have programs and things that are centered around academic topics that they're interested in. And then faculty have expressed interest in interdisciplinary work outside of opportunities like co-teaching classes or co-developing classes or research. They just want opportunities to collaborate and share ideas. So that shifted our change a bit. And so for the full evolution of UC, to get to where we are now, Complex Problems was piloted separate from UC in fall 2016. Fall 2017 was the beginning of the integration where Complex Problems started substituting the original University College classes. And now that we've moved into fall 2019 was the first time that we built them in intentional cohorts so that the themes were all built off of the course topics. So last semester's themes were things like problem to policy, or lawful crime, global citizenship were the titles of these cohorts. And so you could imagine types of classes that would have been within those. Problem to policy had a class called Trump and the Constitution. Another one was education, problem, or solution that analyzed sort of the privilege and disadvantages created by the American education system. So, let's move in. Here's the next.
Thank you, Martin. So, the next sort of piece of the puzzle of our presentation today is this idea of interdisciplinarity. And so, in preparation for this talk today, I did a little bit of not intensive research, but I've started looking into some ideas about interdisciplinarity, because it's one of those words we all use, but sort of what's really behind it. And it turns out it's really hard to find an answer to this question. There are so many different diverse definitions that overlap in interesting ways and conflict in other ways. And then on top of that, it's not just about interdisciplinary work, it's also about transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, pluridisciplinary, and even meta-disciplinary work. And what makes it bizarre is you'll be reading, and this scholar's definition of interdisciplinarity, which she insists is totally different than transdisciplinarity, is exactly the same as this scholar's definition of transdisciplinarity. So I ended up going the sort of simplified route. Let's just find a simple definition, and I found an article with the wonderful title, Fruits, Salads, and Smoothies, a Working Definition of Interdisciplinarity, by a fellow at Wayne State University named Moti Nisani, and he avoids the whole mess by just making it simple. Bringing together in some fashion distinctive components of two or more disciplines. That kind of captures a lot of the variations. And Nisani goes on to talk about how interdisciplinarity shows up in research, in teaching, in study of education, and of course in the ways in which we build our own separate courses. So, some of the modes of interdisciplinary work that we're used to, Richard sort of hinted at some of these. We generally think of it in research between faculty of different disciplines coming together to work on a shared goal that draws upon both of their or all of their approaches. Team teaching, faculty come together to teach one course that draws upon both of their fields. Programs, for example, American Studies or CRGC brings together faculty from all over the campus to bring their different disciplinary approaches to bear on one topic. And of course, students may sometimes indulge in projects that we ask them to draw upon different disciplines. Well, what we're doing with the Living Learning community is trying to find a way to get beyond some of these tried and true methods and develop some of that intellectual community that students are asking for, and some of that new forms of collaboration that perhaps don't require the same level of investment as team teaching a course, which anyone who's ever tried to do that can tell you is full of challenges, or having to create an entire program. So you heard about the complex problems courses. So just in case you're not familiar with the courses, it's part of the new AU core. It's one of our foundation courses that all students take in their first year. And the simplest way to describe it is a first year transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary, choose your adjective, inquiry-based seminar that's designed to prepare students for academic inquiry in all of their courses. We like to refer to it as the gateway to the core, because the courses are taught by faculty from all over the university, but within our program. So, for example, even though Martin is part of the Arab Studies program, your course is not about necessarily Arab Studies. It's different than that, but it draws upon his expertise. So that way, students are getting an exposure to more of the skills than a specific disciplinary content. And these are our outcomes. The broad categories are diverse perspectives, communication, critical reading, reflection, and integrative learning, which is harkening back to what Richard told you about the student staff members, the program leaders. We ask our complex problems courses to offer co-curricular activities, at least 3 in the semester, that work to connect the work of the class with the larger world, usually by taking advantage of the city, going out to sites across DC that are relevant to whatever is happening in the classroom, but also things like guest speakers, on-campus programming. So we start right away with asking faculty to think beyond the silos of their usual disciplines when they create these courses, because they're not necessarily targeted at students in their major or students in their minor. And so the diverse perspectives outcome in particular is a place where faculty are encouraged to look at a topic that may be considered as belonging usually to one discipline or one area, and looking at it from many different angles. One example, we have a faculty member, Professor Nathan Harshman from the physics department, who teaches a complex problem seminar called The Material World. And this is the general concept behind the course, that students will grapple with how to reconcile the following perspectives with the empirical finite materiality of the world and everything in it. So you can see how a physicist would be interested in the material world. But this is wonderful. This is actual language from his syllabus. He lists, they're going to look at philosophical angles on this topic, scientific, technological. It goes on, economic, cultural, environmental, political. Not everybody makes the interdisciplinarity this explicit in their syllabi, but it's baked into a lot of what folks do. They draw upon readings from various disciplines, professions, and perspectives. They bring to bear different questions that are of interest to different stakeholders across different disciplines. That's wonderful, and we love these courses, and they give students this grounding. But to take it a step further, we really emphasize the interdisciplinarity at the cohort level in university college. So you heard about those cohorts that we create. So we work our hardest to find connections between courses. So once we have identified, in this case for the upcoming semester, we had 32 sections that are volunteer-based, or in some cases recruited. We ask some faculty, hey, we'd love to have you in UC. And we have a stable core of folks who love teaching it. So once we have that list, we start to look for the patterns. Where do we see underlying themes, whether in the content of the courses or in the approaches that the faculty members seem to be taking? And then we use those commonalities to create these groups of courses that vary from 4 seminars to 7, strictly dependent on the fact that some of the floors and wings accommodate 4 classes worth of students, and some accommodate 5, 6, or 7. So this coming fall, we have 1 7-course seminar, and the rest are all 4. Or no, 1 5, I'm sorry. 1 5, 1 7, and the rest are 4. So relatively small. So each cohort has a distinctive name, as you heard some of those names, that reflects that commonality. So there's a sense of cohort identity. You're in university college, but you're also in the problem to policy cohort. They have that same residence hall floor or wing, as you heard. The roommates are shared between them, and they offer the events and other programming. So the cohort becomes a subset of both complex problems faculty and of the students living in UC. So we've started to make some changes. You saw that pattern from the implementation to bringing it into the complex problems to bringing it into the more cohort level. Because of those requests, faculty wanting more interaction, students wanting more intellectual community, and the university changing to the AU core, we wanted to really think of how we could make the interdisciplinarity, the collaboration, the intellectual community even stronger. And so we've changed up some of the ways we're doing things for fall of 2020. The same basic premise, students living in the themed cohorts on the same floor or wing. But we've looked at a couple of ways to improve that intellectual element. One category is starting with faculty collaboration in the spring semester. We met with focus groups with all of our fall 19 cohort faculty, and one of the common themes that came out was if they're going to work together, they need to start sooner. It can't happen in the fall when the syllabi are already created, plans have already been made. So we're going to start to give them a chance from the very beginning to name their own cohort. We've been naming them up to now. Well, what would happen if we actually said, you 4 faculty, talk to each other, figure out what would be the best name that would capture. And for some reason, the word's missing on my slide. Identify shared themes and approaches. So for example, the cohort might decide that we're all in some way touching upon themes of materiality, or we're all touching upon themes that are personal but have a political dimension. So, or it could be a shared approach. We're all really concerned with thinking about the context of issues. So we're gonna give them a chance to be invested in the name and the theme of what they're doing. We sort of made the first step by putting them together. They're gonna sort of take the next step of figuring out what those mean. And encourage them to think about potential shared readings and assignments. This is something we've not done before, where faculty members would maybe think, well, wait, we could both read that book around the same time, and that would cross-pollinate. Or maybe we could have an assignment that both of our students are working on that draws upon slightly different texts, and then that could foster some collaboration. And then, of course, more ideas for that shared programming. Not just the individual co-curriculars that they're all required to do, but what are some things that the entire cohort might be invested in? So starting in the spring, we'll give them a chance to do more of this collaboration. So we also want to offer a lot more support for faculty. So all the classes already have a $200 budget for co-curricular programming. We are now also going to be able to offer a cohort budget, which is $100 per seminar in the cohort. So a cohort of 4 classes will have $400 to be used expressly for collaborative programming, to encourage them to be able to do things that they couldn't do alone, both in terms of the resources and in terms of the student interest. And then I said that all of our seminars require at least 3 co-curriculars. We're going to adjust those expectations to 2 per seminar so that they can have 2 per cohort to create more space for them to collaborate and create, because there's, as we know, there's only so many weeks in the semester, so taking away some of the burden of individual programming to open space for group programming. And of course, continue to provide support from our team in new ways as we move forward. And then the third category is utilizing those program leaders and the residence hall space. Even as we improve and deepen the learning side of the LLC, we also don't want to lose sight of the living part of it. So, for example, we're going to try to give the students opportunity to draw connections outside of class time by having some of the shared programming, by requiring program leaders to spend time on the floor, the residence hall floor, to foster those conversations, encourage cross-seminar dialogue, both formal and informal. This was inspired by, we have 2 faculty members in UC who started this wonderful activity. Have they done it twice now, I think? They've done it 2 years in a row. Professor Lori Stepanek, who has a seminar about mental illness and perceptions of mental illness, and Laura Duvall, who has a course about prejudice. So there's a bit of overlap there, and so what they've decided to do is at the end of the semester, they get their 2 classes together in one room, and they talk to each other about how their seminar met the learning outcomes differently and similarly, and they sort of learn how looking at mental illness and looking at prejudice, the overlaps and the differences and how they use different methods. So fostering more things like that, chances for students to talk across those class lines, and creating opportunities for students to share their work. We have a university college newsletter. We want to try to find other ways to get student voices and student work to be shared across those lines within the cohort as well. So that's our goals for the upcoming fall 2020 semester. And to give you a sense of what we have, here are our seminars, and I want to turn the floor over to Becca to talk about the more nuts and bolts side of how we create the cohorts and how the interdisciplinarity plays a role in that.
So I apologize, the projector is kind of small and there's a lot of words on here, so it's probably a little bit hard to read. But basically what I wanted to do was give you the opportunity to look at the seminars we're offering and kind of think about the ways in which they're potentially interdisciplinary and how they can connect to each other in cohorts. So is any